The George Clooney opinion piece in the New York Times is making waves throughout Democratic circles because George Clooney isn't just some random actor. He just held the highest single night in terms of dollar figures fundraiser for the Democrats for Biden.
Yeah, he's one of those celebrities that have always come out in support of the Democrats, whoever the candidate is, holding fundraisers, doing whatever he could as a celebrity to rally the voter base and the moneyed people behind the Democrats. He's one of those guys, a tried and true blue Democrat.
And big donor. That's the thing. This is a huge bundler donor for the Democrats. And so reportedly, he gave Obama a call before he published this opinion piece in the New York Times, which also included his anecdotal view that Biden at this fundraiser, which was in June, was not the Biden that he knew previously, not the Biden that he knew even a year ago or so. He was the Biden that we saw at the debate, basically giving firsthand knowledge that Democratic representatives aren't going to say out loud right now, for the most part. So Obama, he gave him maybe not the green light, but he said, go ahead and publish it. And the Morning Joe crew was very upset that
Take the shot.
Obama may be sabotaging Biden behind the scenes because the writing is on the wall that the Democrats with Biden at the top of the ticket, it could be any replacement level Democrat. I think it's likely it could be Harris, but are on track for historic losses that would give Trump massive margins in the House and Senate and the presidency, which should terrify us all if we're really interested in staving off this far-right extremist administration. So how does the Biden campaign respond to this devastating opinion piece in the New York Times? With taking a page out of Trump's playbook?
Point to an aggressive travel schedule in the coming weeks. He's set to go to Michigan on Friday, Nevada next week, as well as an aggressive fundraising schedule with events planned in Texas and Colorado and 2 in California as proof that he is not going anywhere. And in response to those comments from George Clooney, Jake, a campaign official who attended that Los Angeles fundraiser tells me that George Clooney left 3 hours before the president. So clearly the gloves are off. Jake.
But what does that mean that George Clooney left 3 hours? What's the point?
The point of that is to suggest that Biden's stamina is better than Clooney's, and Clooney didn't have, eyes on the entire event. That's the response to the Clooney op-ed.
Okay, Kayla Tashi, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
So he's basically just laughing at. I mean, you were gonna say you have more stamina. Jack, I'm hotter than George Clooney. I'm more handsome.
I was at Jimmy Cagney's house last week. How insane do you have to be to think that, because the follow-up is like, what do you mean by that? Because nobody would draw the inference that George Clooney was cognitively tired. It was probably George Clooney has better things to do than raise money for Democrats all goddamn night.
He's going to go home to his beautiful wife and children, one of whom is helps the ICC prosecute war criminals, as opposed to standing around concerned in the way that apparently a lot of people were at that fundraiser about Biden. That was the fundraiser. People saw the footage. Some Democrats said that it was like a deep fake, and man, is there egg on their face now a little bit of Obama having to lead Biden off the stage because he seemed to freeze. But yeah, Tapper's not having any of that BS.
Well, the moment George
I would
Clooney
love to hear that
watching,
what was that? I'm sorry.
The moment George Clooney stopped watching was the moment Joe Biden's cognitive ability ratcheted itself up 5-16%.
He was starstruck.
It was nerves. I mean, I would be reduced to a gibbering mess if I met George Clooney too. But luckily, I'm not in that position.
Yeah,
Clooney just happened to leave before Biden whipped out the unicycle riding juggling act that he performed.
Did you see that, George?
And now the entire periodic table. Well, does anybody remember the Phil Hartman Ronald Reagan sketch at SNL? It's basically like Ronald Reagan as senile and silly in front of the cameras, and then the second the cameras go off, he's like, all right, this is what we do with Iran-Contra. You move the money there, we take the guns there. And the joke is that he is super competent when the cameras stop running. Yeah. That's literally what we're asked to believe with this guy.
Yeah.
Also, the campaign
because of
has
my
already
neurological capacity.
Sorry, Brennan, go ahead.
I was going to say the campaign has already admitted that he gets worse as the night goes on. So this is in direct contradiction to that already like fully exposed like sundowning effect.
Yeah.
Maybe the campaign official was actually like, you know what, George? If you thought you saw bad, you missed the worst of it, buddy. Let me tell you.
You ain't seen nothing yet.
And just every line of defense is falling apart. I mean, that is something the Trump campaign would say, like, I'm hotter than George. I have more stamina than George. He doesn't, he wishes he was me. It's really silly. And like their other line of defense recently has been, they've been saying that the black community and black voters are behind Biden. That this ABC polling that just came out showed that it's around 49% of voters, of black voters, that think Biden should step aside, which is very similar to the Democrats' number overall. Which is like 54%, and there's more undecideds on that side. So it's by far the plurality position. It's just a lie to bide more time, and he's also using the Congressional Black Caucus in the way that he has done, I think I would say really cynically, for a good amount of his career. Brandon, that's some of what we were chatting about the other day.
Well, yeah, because the Congressional Black Caucus, they kind of act like a floodgate for like black opinion in the Democratic Party. A lot of them are just as careerist as white Democrats are as well, though. So it's not unbelievable that they would side with Biden over even a potential Harris presidency, because they sided with Hillary Clinton over Obama. And the reason wasn't because they were afraid. They weren't afraid that Obama was going to lose, although that, was something that you would hear. They were trying to cozy up with the Clinton world so that when Clinton eventually beat Obama and Clinton eventually took over, they would have, they would not have alienated themselves from the seat of power. Like the Congressional Black Caucus has terrible political, they have both terrible political instincts and often can be like destructively careerist. They're, in the past, they have stood against gerrymandering reform because in the South, a lot of places in the South, gerrymandering helps Congressional Black Caucus members because it solidifies all black people into one district. It concentrates,
it all into one district, so it threatens the power of the members of the Congressional Black Caucus, particularly in the South. It's also why they are like a gerontocratic caucus as well. Yeah. They're very much older, and it makes sense that they would side with the guy they've known for 50-ish years, and power, the safest bet in that way.
Exactly. It's so cynical, and I don't understand how people think that it's the response. Like they pose as if it's the responsible thing to do. Wajat Ali, who we've had on this program previously, like good liberal, was on CNN. Now he's with the Daily Beast. Has been. He said this: George Clooney, James Carville, mostly white male pundits, Michael Bennett, all want Biden to drop out immediately. No, who doesn't? Most black Democrat voters. I trust them. And then Michael Dowd.
That's a flat lie.
Well, Michael Dowd points out actually 49% of black voters want him to step aside. 34% want him to stay. 56% of Hispanic voters want him to step aside. 22 want him to stay. And Wajat's point is just to ask, will they vote for him if he's on the ballot? Also, who do they want to replace him? Just two questions. So not acknowledging that, you just lied. You literally lied about something for the rhetorical effect of it. It's just so it's so it's I don't cynical. Know. It's disgusting.
Also,
the whole discussion around who will replace him, the only people I've heard throw out names other than Biden's literal VP, Kamala Harris, are the establishment DNC types when they're thinking about how it could possibly be done at the convention. Everyone who's ever discussed Biden dropping out, other than those types, have been like, well, yeah, obviously Kamala would just take over. I mean, it's not that that's another part of the discussion that they try to play dumb on to try to ruin the idea that replacing Biden would actually be pretty simple. It really would be.
Yeah.
Well, they also have to lie about the proportion of people within their own party that want Biden replaced, because they have to keep pretending like he was chosen democratically this time, for this election, that there was a primary that he won without anyone, tipping the scale either implicitly or explicitly in 2020, I mean. And then also in 2024, where there was kind of just another hand waving of a primary that got him through. He's been hard carried through the Democratic Party primaries, and now he's on the big stage, and he's not likely to pull it out. And they have to pretend like that's something the voters want. And it's not something that the establishment wants, nothing that Biden wants, but it's that the voters are the ones choosing. When we know that even if 99% of the Democratic voters said that they wanted Biden to step out, Biden would still be resistance to it. Like the Democratic Party is incredibly resistant to populist demands from their own party. And this is just another example of that. Gaza was another example of that. Like the idea that if 75%, let's forget about white voters for a second, but if 75% of the black voters said they didn't want to vote for Joe Biden, that he would step aside is ridiculous. Joe Biden would not step aside under those circumstances. So why even reference the proportion of them? It doesn't matter how many Democrats want him to step aside. He's not going to do it until it's like right for him.
Well, I mean, it's also about more than Democrats. This is what is the most frustrating part of this. It's about mobilizing low propensity voters, independents.
Exactly.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.